My name is Nathan Brooks. At 35, I was the CEO of Brooks Technologies, a leading tech company headquartered in Austin, Texas. I had everything anyone could ever dream of: a stellar career, admiration from every corner of the business world, and above all, a wife who could turn heads wherever she went. Sophia Whitmore, as stunning as a symphony of spring. She had it all: beauty, intelligence, grace, and a family name etched deep into the pillars of Southern real estate wealth. When I married Sophia, I wasn't just marrying a woman. I was marrying into a legend. Our wedding was held at Villa del Lago by the shores of Lake Travis, under a sky ablaze with golden sunset. An extravagant ceremony, Italian wines, live jazz music, hundreds of distinguished guests. Friends clapped me on the back and laughed. "Nathan, you're not just the king of tech, you married a goddess." I truly believed I had reached the pinnacle of life. But real-life fairy tales often hide the darkest shadows. Everyone around us was envious of Sophia and me. They whispered, "The Whitmores. They only love money. That family treats marriage like a business transaction." I loved Sophia, and because I loved her, I ignored it all. I was blind, completely blind. The first crack in my perfect world came with the pandemic. Almost overnight, Brooks Technologies, once thriving and unstoppable, was gutted. Contracts were canceled. Cash flow dried up. I laid off people I once called family, watched the offices we built from scratch sit empty and cold. At first, I told myself, "It's temporary. We'll bounce back." I always bounce back. But the months dragged on, and reality sank its teeth deeper. By the end of the year, we filed for bankruptcy. I sold the Lake Travis house, sold the Range Rover, sold stocks I once believed would sustain us for decades. Each sale felt like cutting away another piece of myself. Through it all, Sophia remained detached, cold. She spent her days shopping online, sipping champagne, posting curated photos of a lifestyle that no longer existed. When I mentioned tightening our budget, her face twisted in disdain. "We are not some middle-class sob story, Nathan." It was during one of those empty nights while combing through hospital bills that my phone rang. It was the hospital. My mother, the woman who raised me single-handedly after my father's death, had been rushed to the ER's severe respiratory failure, critical. I dropped everything and raced to the hospital. Standing outside her ICU room, watching her fragile body tethered to tubes and machines, I realized that nothing else mattered. Not houses, not titles, not Sophia's curated perfection. Only she mattered. I needed money for the surgery, urgently. I rushed to the bank to withdraw what was left of our savings, the account that Sophia and I shared. When the teller looked up at me with apologetic eyes, the balance, zero, gone. Every cent wiped clean. I confronted Sophia that night. I found her lounging on the cream-colored sectional in our living room, scrolling through her phone, a glass of rosé dangling from her manicured fingers. "Where's the money, Sophia?" I asked, my voice shaking not with rage, but with disbelief. She barely glanced up. "I gave it to my brother," she said, as if discussing the weather. "He needed it for a real estate project. It's an investment, Nathan, for our future." "Our future," I choked. "My mother is in the ICU. She needs emergency surgery." Sophia shrugged, setting her glass down delicately. "Nathan, you need to get your priorities straight. My family is making moves. Big ones. Your mother's, well, she's old, and no amount of surgery will change that." I stared at her, unable to comprehend. The woman I loved, the woman I had fought for, built a life for, had chosen cold ambition over a human life. Over my mother's life. I begged. I pleaded. She refused. When I reached out to old friends, people who once toasted my success, who once swore they'd be there through thick and thin, I was met with excuses, polite evasions, silent rejections. Every door slammed shut. I was alone. And while I battled to save my mother, Sophia was already one step ahead, filing for divorce. I found out through an email from her lawyer. In the final blow, she left me saddled with the debts of our crumbled empire, walking away with her family's name untarnished. There was no apology, no regret, just a clean, ruthless exit, as if I had been nothing more than a temporary inconvenience. And so I sat there in the sterile hallway of the hospital, beneath flickering fluorescent lights, watching my world collapse one silent second at a time. One night, as I sat hunched over in a cracked plastic chair outside the ICU, head in my hands, drowning in helplessness, someone called my name, softly, like a whisper carried on a breeze. Natan? I looked up, blinking against the harsh fluorescent lights, and there she was, Emma Carter, the girl I had loved back in college, before life pulled us apart, before she left for Africa, dedicating her youth to humanitarian medical missions, while I chased dreams of boardrooms and big deals. Time had changed her. Her hair was pulled back in a simple braid, her face framed by tired lines that spoke of long nights and harder battles. Yet her eyes, those warm, steadfast eyes, had not changed at all. "Emma," I whispered, almost not believing she was real. She knelt beside me, placing a gentle hand on my arm. "I work here now," she said. "I just transferred back. I heard about your mother." The dam inside me broke. I told her everything. About Sophia, the betrayal, the bankruptcy, the loneliness that swallowed me whole. Emma listened without interrupting, her hand never leaving my arm. No judgment, no pity, just quiet, unwavering presence. When I finished, broken and raw, she squeezed my hand and said, "You're not alone, Nathan. Let me help." And she did. Using her position, her reputation, and every ounce of goodwill she had built over a decade of selfless service, Emma secured financial aid for my mother's surgery. It wasn't easy. It took signatures, meetings, endless paperwork. But by dawn, the surgery was approved. My mother had a fighting chance because Emma believed in me when no one else would. And for the first time in what felt like a lifetime, I allowed myself to hope again. The surgery was a success. My mother, frail but fighting, slowly began her recovery. While I scrambled outside the hospital, taking on odd jobs, hunting for consulting gigs, Emma stayed. She sat by my mother's bedside when I couldn't. She fed her, read to her, comforted her through long, painful nights. One afternoon, as I helped pack my mother's belongings for discharge, she handed me a battered old savings book. "I've been saving everything you sent me all these years," she said, her voice trembling. "I never spent a dime. I always believed you might need it one day." I flipped through the pages, deposit after deposit. Small at first, growing larger as my career blossomed. A lifetime of quiet sacrifice pressed into my palm. I broke down then, not from grief, not from anger, but from a flood of gratitude so raw it shook me to my core. That money, cobbled together from decades of simple living, gave me a foundation to rebuild. Slowly, painfully, I began putting my life back together, and Emma was there, always. Not as a grand savior, but as a steady presence. We spent quiet evenings together, coffee in hospital cafeterias, short walks in the fading Texas light. Conversations flowed easily, naturally, like a river finding its course after a long drought. I learned that Emma had never married. never settled. Her life had been one of service, of giving pieces of herself to those who had nothing. And somehow, without either of us saying it, something began to grow between us. Not the fiery, reckless love of youth, but something deeper, truer. A love built not on fairy tales, but on survival, forgiveness, and hope. While my mother healed and my heart began to stitch itself back together, the world Sophia once ruled crumbled around her. The global financial crisis struck hard. The real estate empire the Whitmores so proudly boasted about collapsed. Banks foreclosed on their properties. Assets were seized. The luxury, the arrogance, all stripped away. Sophia's father, once the towering patriarch of their dynasty, suffered a massive stroke under the pressure. Sophia herself, once radiant and untouchable, became a ghost haunting the city's forgotten corners. One evening, after picking Emma up from her shift at the hospital, I saw her. Sophia. She stood near the hospital entrance, huddled against the cold, her once glossy hair dull and unkempt, her expensive clothes now hanging loosely off a body hollowed by stress and hunger. When she spotted me, her eyes widened. She stumbled forward, desperation etched into every movement. "Nathan," she choked out, tears brimming, "please, please help me." There was a time when that voice could have undone me, a time when I would have run to her without thinking, without question. But not anymore. I stood silently, feeling Emma's steady presence beside me. The weight of everything, the betrayal, the abandonment, the lessons carved into my bones, anchored me in place. I said nothing. I didn't need to. Some wounds don't deserve reopening. I turned, took Emma's hand, and walked away, leaving Sophia standing alone in the cold, a casualty of her own choices. Spring bloomed brightly over Austin the following year. Emma and I held a small outdoor ceremony. Just family, a few close friends, and my mother. No lavish diamond rings, no extravagant wedding gowns, no overproduced spectacle. Just two people standing beneath an archway of white bougainvillea, speaking vows that were simple, honest, and true. "I promise to hold your hand," I said, my voice thick with emotion, "no matter how the world may change around us." Emma smiled through her tears. "And I promise to believe in you, just as I always have, even on the days when you can't believe in yourself." We sealed our vows with a kiss, the first kiss between two souls that had been broken and healed, not perfect, but truly free. Our new life wasn't glamorous. I rebuilt my career step by step, partnering with small businesses, launching modest projects. Emma continued her work at the local hospital, establishing a free medical assistance program for families in need. We bought a small wooden cabin by the lake where every evening we sat side by side, watching the crimson sunsets fade into twilight. One evening, as we sipped coffee on our porch, I asked Emma, "Do you ever regret choosing this life? The one without spotlights, without crowns?" She shook her head, her smile soft and sure. "Real happiness doesn't have to dazzle, Nathan. It just needs to be warm and true." I looked at the woman beside me, at her steady eyes, her unwavering kindness, her unconditional love, and I knew. Through all the loss, through all the pain, I had found the most precious thing of all, family.